Last spring, I picked up a Friday night babysitting job for the Davids, a family 5 blocks from my house in Chandler, Arizona. I was 17, saving for community college, and $20 an hour sounded perfect. Their subdivision felt safe. Single-story houses, neat lawns, streetlights every few yards, so my parents said yes. I got there around 6:30 p.m. Mrs. David walked me through the alarm panel, Wi-Fi password, and emergency numbers. She changed 4-year-old Sybil and 6-year-old Tyler into pajamas and left chicken nugget leftovers in the fridge. Mr. David reminded me bedtime was 8:30 sharp. Then they headed to a charity dinner downtown. When the front door shut, I slid the deadbolt out of habit. The evening was calm. We colored with crayons, watched half an episode of Paw Patrol, brushed teeth. At 8:25, I took them upstairs, read a story about a lost puppy, and switched on their nightlight, an LED moon that glowed soft blue. They were out within minutes. Downstairs, I texted my mom, spread biology flashcards on the kitchen island, and poured a glass of cold soda. At 9:15, the doorbell rang. I jumped. The Davids hadn't mentioned anyone coming by. Through the peephole, I saw a man in his late 30s, gray hoodie, dark jeans, running shoes. A black Honda idled at the curb. He held up a keyring and gave a friendly wave toward the door camera. He spoke like he knew I was listening. "Hey, I'm the kid's uncle, Brandon. I forgot my keys earlier. Need to grab something from the upstairs bedroom." His tone was casual, not pushy, but every instinct I had screamed no. The Davids had never mentioned a brother. Through the locked door, I answered, keeping my voice steady. "Their parents didn't tell me anyone was coming." "That's on me," he said easily. "I told my sister I still had the spare." "Look, Sybil asked for her purple blanket earlier, right? She always wants it when she's tired. And Tyler had mac and cheese before he got into his dinosaur PJs. I know their routine." He was right. My stomach nodded. Maybe he was family, maybe not. I stepped away from the door and checked the baby monitor app. Both kids were asleep, soft breathing in the glow of the blue moon. On the living room security tablet, the front door cam showed him shifting his weight, hands visible, not touching the handle. I called Mrs. David. No answer. Called Mr. David, straight to voicemail. My thumb hovered over 911, but I hesitated. "False alarms get you fined in Arizona." A text pinged. "Mrs. David, sorry, the banquet is loud. Everything okay?" I typed fast. "Man here says he's Brandon. Your brother needs him." 3 dots. Then, "We don't have a brother, call the police now." My hands shook. I took a slow breath and dialed 911, gave the address, his description, and stressed there were 2 sleeping kids upstairs. From the hallway came a soft knock, same polite rhythm. "I really need that blanket," he called. "Promise I'll be 2 minutes." I didn't answer. After about 10 seconds, the door camera showed him drift toward the front windows, cupping his hands to peer in. I killed the lights so he couldn't see me. In the dim glow of my phone, I watched him follow the siding toward the side gate. A moment later, the backyard motion light snapped on, then off. The dispatcher stayed on the line. "Units are 3 minutes out. Stay inside and keep everything locked." I checked the patio door, still latched, curtain drawn. The house felt unnaturally quiet, even the fridge hum seemed muted. 2 cruiser sirens grew loud, then cut off. Red and blue light pulsed through the blinds. I stayed in the hallway until an officer called from the porch, giving his name and badge number through the locked door. Only then did I open it. They searched the yard and nearby streets. The Honda was gone. Fresh tire marks angled toward the main road. Doorbell cameras on neighboring houses didn't catch much. He'd parked just out of frame. Inside, the kids slept through everything. The officers took my statement, told me I'd done the right thing, and stayed until Mr. and Mrs. David rushed home, faces drained. Mrs. David hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe, repeating, "Thank you for protecting them." By 12:30 a.m., the patrol cars rolled away. The Davids insisted on driving me home. I agreed, but I kept checking the mirrors the whole ride. That night I replayed every second. How had he known about dinner and pajamas? Had he watched through a window earlier, overheard me talking? Later, the Davids found a small gap between a window frame and its lock. Maybe he'd eased it open before I arrived and listened from the yard. He disappeared before the police got there, which meant he was using a scanner app or just had sharp instincts. Weeks passed before I babysat another evening. When I did, I brought privacy film for bare windows, swapped weak latches, and kept a baseball bat nearby. I stopped believing that a calm voice and personal details proved anything. Detectives who followed up said similar men had been reported near elementary schools, lingering and collecting bits of conversation to use later as proof. They knew a family. They thought he'd tried 3 houses that month, always claiming to be a relative. That didn't comfort me. It only meant his polite act was practiced. The case is still open. No arrest. I still babysit, but now only for relatives, and I don't ignore my gut. Safety sits on little choices, locking a side gate, refusing to argue through a door, double-checking someone's story. I made those choices that night, and 2 kids kept dreaming under a blue moon nightlight instead of waking to a stranger's footsteps. Sometimes, long after midnight, I wake to the memory of a soft knock and a steady, almost friendly voice asking for a child's blanket. It sounds patient, like it's still out there, waiting for someone to trust it. I hope no one ever does. I'm not one for ghost stories or wild imagination, but what happened to me last month still keeps me up at night. My name's Lee. I'm 32 and work as a nurse at a small hospital in upstate New York. My shifts usually end late, and I drive home along quiet roads through woods and farmland. Normally it's peaceful, just me, my beat-up Honda Civic, and the radio. That night everything felt off. Around 11:30 p.m., exhausted after a 12-hour shift, I headed for home on Route 12, my usual 2-lane highway lined with trees and the occasional gas station. About 5 miles from my house, I hit a wall of orange signs and cones. The road ahead was blocked. A big arrow pointed left down a side road I'd never taken. The sign read, "Detour, roadwork ahead." I groaned. I just wanted a shower and sleep. But I had no choice, so I turned onto the narrow, unlit road. It was creepy from the start, barely wide enough for 2 cars, trees pressing close on both sides, no houses, no streetlights. Just darkness and the crunch of gravel under my tires. I turned the radio down to focus, hands tight on the wheel. The road twisted and twisted. I kept expecting to see construction equipment, workers, anything. But there was nothing. Just endless trees and the quiet drone of my engine. 10 minutes in, unease settled over me. I hadn't seen another car. The road felt like it stretched forever. My GPS kept losing signal and rerouting. "This doesn't feel right," I muttered. I checked my rear view. A truck had appeared about 100 yards behind me, coasting along with its headlights off. My stomach dropped. Who drives a dark road at night with no lights? I told myself it was nothing, just a local who knew the detour. But the truck stayed at the same distance, neither closing in nor dropping back. I pressed the gas, trying to put some space between us. The truck sped up too, holding the gap. My heart hammered. Maybe their lights were broken. Maybe they were lost. I kept feeding myself excuses. Then I noticed something worse. There were no more construction signs, no cones, no barricades, just trees. And I realized there hadn't been any real signs of road work back on Route 12 either. No machines, no torn up pavement. Just those cones and that wrong-spelled detour blocking the way. Panic crept in. I grabbed my phone to call 911. No service, of course. Middle of nowhere. The truck still lurked behind me, a dark shape with no visible driver gliding through my mirror like a shadow. I pushed my Civic harder, the suspension rattling over ruts. The truck matched me, always the same distance back. "Okay," I whispered, "just find a way back to the main road." The road kept winding, no intersections, no landmarks. Then finally, a faint glow ahead, headlights coming toward me. Relief washed over me. Maybe a cop, someone. As the car neared, I slowed and flashed my high beams, hoping to flag it down. It was a white SUV. It slowed to and eased to the shoulder. I stopped opposite it, engine running, and cracked my window. "Hey, I think someone's following me," I called. The driver, a middle-aged man with glasses, leaned out. "You okay?" he asked, genuinely concerned. I pointed behind me. "There's a truck back there, no lights, been tailing me for miles." He peered into the darkness, then his expression changed. "There's no truck," he said. I whipped around to check my mirror. The road behind me was empty. Ice spread through my veins. I'd seen it seconds earlier. "Listen," he said quietly. "This road's weird. I got detoured here too, but there's no construction on 12. I checked. You should follow me back to the main road." I nodded, too rattled to argue. I tailed his SUV for about 10 minutes. Then just like that, we were back on Route 12. No cones, no detour sign, just open highway. I thanked him. He said he'd call the cops and report it. I drove home fast and locked every door. I didn't sleep. The signs, the truck, the way it disappeared, it all replayed on a loop in my head. The next day, I called the sheriff's office. They confirmed there'd been no scheduled road work on Route 12 that night, no authorized detours, no other reports. I searched online and stumbled across local forums. Buried in threads were stories. Fake detours, strange vehicles, back roads that seemed to swallow you. Some people thought it was a dumb prank. Others suggested something worse, thieves, abductions. I don't know what I saw. Maybe exhaustion played tricks on me. Maybe it was just a sick joke, but I can't shake the feeling there was something wrong about that road, like it was waiting. I take a different way home now, even if it adds time. And every time I see an orange construction sign, my heart skips. I don't think I'll ever feel completely safe driving alone at night again. When I was 15, I met my now husband. He just turned 16 in an art class. Our small town didn't offer much for brand new teenagers dating. Besides the occasional Target run, there wasn't a lot to do. The town itself had charm, though. People came from miles away to hike old mining routes or visit the river that cut through the nearby canyon. The river and its trails were the heart of the place, where locals and tourists went to disappear into nature for a few hours. I'd practically grown up on those trails. They felt like an extension of my backyard, familiar and safe. One half-mile path was my favorite. It led to a modest bridge overlooking the river, framed by rugged canyon walls. Nothing spectacular, just a simple bridge with a stunning view and a peaceful stillness that always calmed me. A little farther away stood another bridge, much more famous and infamous. One of the tallest bridges in the world, an engineering marvel drawing thrill seekers and sightseers. The hikes around it offered sweeping views of the canyon and the river far below, but it carried a dark reputation. Too many people had jumped from it over the years. Its stories felt heavy in the air, a shadow stretching over the beauty. One evening around 6 p.m., my husband and I decided on a simple date, a walk down my favorite half-mile trail to the small bridge. The canyon tends to swallow daylight early. The walls steal the sun long before the actual sunset. As we started, a subtle unease crawled up my spine. The light faded faster than I'd expected, and the air felt strangely heavy. The hike to the bridge is short, just a straight shot and a right turn onto the bridge itself. But as we walked, the forest went quiet. The usual bird calls and rustling leaves faded into an almost perfect silence. By the time we reached the turnoff, it was completely dark. It was only around 7 p.m., but inside that canyon it might as well have been midnight. We turned on our phone flashlights. Their beams carved out small circles of visibility and nothing more. The rest of the world vanished into black. My gut twisted. I'd hiked this trail dozens of times, but everything in me said turn back. I mentioned it, but my husband, braver or just more stubborn, wanted to keep going. As we neared the start of the bridge, I froze. Just 3 feet off the trail, at the very beginning of the bridge, stood a figure. My flashlight caught his back. My heart lurched. He was huge, at least 6 or 7 feet tall, 250 pounds, in a brown flannel shirt and dark pants, either navy or black. His brown hair stuck straight up, unnaturally stiff, as if it had been sculpted that way. It wasn't just his size that disturbed me. His proportions were wrong. His arms hung too long for his body, dangling in a way that didn't look quite human. His head was almost perfectly round, like a basketball set on his shoulders. I couldn't see his feet at all. He stood absolutely still, facing down the hill into total darkness. Alone, not moving, not speaking, I whispered, "What is that?" My voice trembled. My husband stood rigid beside me, eyes locked on the figure, barely even blinking. The three of us, me, my husband, and the thing by the bridge, hung there in a stretched-out moment that probably lasted only a minute but felt like forever. The figure didn't turn, didn't acknowledge us, just stared into the black. My mind raced. How did he get here? There were no other cars at the trailhead. Why stand off the trail in the dark, staring into nothing? Why was he keeping his back to us? Was he hiding his face, or hiding what he was doing? My husband finally managed, his voice shaky but steady, "Hey man, what are you doing?" The figure started to turn. Slowly, deliberately, nausea rolled over me. My ignored gut instinct roared back, "Run." I didn't wait to see his face. I grabbed my husband's arm and bolted, sprinting back the way we'd come. My flashlight beam bounced wildly over roots and rocks. I refused to look back. Behind me, I heard my husband yelling my name, his footsteps pounding the dirt. I'd gotten a head start and I wasn't slowing down. We reached the car, both of us panting and shaking. My fingers fumbled with the keys. The parking lot was still completely empty. The drive back to town was 5 or 6 miles depending on the turn you took, and there was no cell service the entire way. My heart didn't stop racing until the first streetlights appeared. We barely talked. We were too rattled to make sense of anything. A few days later, curiosity won. I couldn't stop thinking about that figure. I convinced my husband to go back in daylight, this time with a group of friends. I needed some logical explanation. A jacket hung on a railing, a weird stump, a forgotten prop from some daredevil stunt. But when we reached the spot, there was nothing. No poles, no jacket, no mannequin, nothing that could have mimicked what we saw. Something else, though, made my blood run colder. Where the figure had stood, the ground dropped off sharply, a steep 4-foot decline. If he had truly been standing there, that would have made him closer to 8 or 10 feet tall. Whatever we'd seen wasn't just tall, it was impossibly tall. This town, this river, this canyon, they're soaked in history. Some of it beautiful, some tragic. Old mining stories, lives lost on the tall bridge, the quiet majesty of the cliffs. It all weaves into something that feels almost aware. I don't know what we saw that night. I've told the story to friends and family and never gotten an answer that sits right. Human, ghost, something else. I don't know. But the memory of that towering figure, motionless in the pitch black, still haunts me. It's become another thread in the river's long story, a shadow in the canyon I'll never fully understand. I kept this to myself for a long time. Last year it felt safer not to say anything, but silence helps no one. Maybe someone needs the warning. I work as a security guard at a small airport in Germany. Most flights leave before dawn, so my shift is always nights. For 5 years the job was routine. Check doors, scan badges, watch cameras. Then came a night in mid-July, peak travel season. Families pushed strollers, tourists dragged rolling suitcases, every check-in line crawled. Even with all that movement, something about the terminal felt wrong. I couldn't explain it, so I just kept working. Near midnight, I took my break. I walked to the bakery, bought a chocolate bar and an energy drink, and sat at a metal table. While I watched a short video on my phone, I got the sudden urge to turn around. A man in a black rain jacket stood behind me. The hood was down. He stared straight at me, eyes locked, no pretense of looking at shops or screens. Just me. I held his gaze for 2 seconds, then looked back at my phone. Airports are full of odd people. Most are harmless. I finished half the drink, pocketed my phone, and stepped into the restroom to wash my hands before my break ended. When I came back out, the same man stood about 50 meters away in the main hallway. Head tilted, eyes fixed on me again. The moment he saw I'd noticed him, he turned and slipped into a side corridor. No noise, no hurry. A quiet alarm went off in my head, but he hadn't broken any rules. I went back to work, pacing gates and checking locks, counting the hours until sunrise. At dawn, my phone battery finally died. The walk home is short, so I put the dead phone away and left. Halfway back, I remembered the power bank in my backpack. I plugged it in as I walked. About 10 minutes from my apartment, I tapped the power button to check the charge. A message I'd never seen filled the screen. Unknown AirTag detected. It is moving with you. Distance 800 meters. I don't own an AirTag. I stopped. The street was empty except for a line of dim lamps. Another notification popped up. Distance 600 m, then 500. I tried to think of simple explanations. Maybe someone nearby had luggage with a tracker, maybe a lost bag, but the number kept falling. I started to jog. The phone vibrated again. I turned the corner and broke into a run. My legs felt numb. The numbers dropped even faster. I reached my building, shoved the key in, slammed the door behind me, and leaned against it, chest heaving. The screen showed 50 meters, then 20, then 10. I peered through the peephole. Empty street. Hands shaking, I dumped my pockets and backpack onto the floor. Nothing. No tag. No device. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? A signal on my screen says someone's following me. I told myself I was just overtired. Long shift, half asleep. I changed clothes, stretched out on my bed, and put on a horror story video. The narrator's steady voice usually helped me relax. I remember the first few minutes. Then I passed out. Sometime later, I woke in the dark. The video had ended, but my phone glowed with a notification. Unknown AirTag detected. It is moving with you. Distance 2 meters meant it was inside my room. I couldn't move. I locked the phone. The screen went dark. My eyes adjusted. At the foot of my bed, next to the wardrobe, a silhouette stood. Black rain jacket, same face, watching. A broken sound tore out of my throat. He stepped backward, opened my door, and slipped out. By the time my feet hit the floor, he was gone. The police arrived quickly. They checked every room, every window, the stairwell. The door frame was intact. No pry marks. The only key inside was mine. They found no fingerprints, no AirTag, just a single wet footprint next to my bed. They told me to stay with family. I slept on my sister's couch that night with the hall light on, my phone set to alert at any motion. The next morning, I went back with a locksmith. We put in new deadbolts and a camera above the front door. Then we turned my backpack inside out on the kitchen table. There, hidden under the lining at the bottom seam of an inner pocket, was a white plastic disc smaller than a coin. An AirTag. Someone had sliced the fabric, tucked the tracker in, and glued it back so neatly I'd never felt a difference. Whoever it was had been close enough to slide a hand into my bag without me noticing. Maybe when I bought the chocolate bar. Maybe when I checked my watch near an exit. I'll never know. I keep the tag sealed in a plastic evidence bag on my desk. A reminder that danger can look ordinary and stand right behind you without making a sound. I still work nights, but I don't walk home anymore. And every time my phone vibrates for any reason, I think of that silent face in the dark, waiting for the moment I'd realize he was there. If you ever feel watched, trust that feeling. Act fast. I was lucky. The next person might not be. I've always loved camping. The pine smell, the crackle of a fire, the quiet of the woods. That's where I feel most alive. Last summer, my friends Jake, Matt, Amber, and I planned a weekend in Blackwood Forest, a thick stretch of pines about 2 hours from our town. It's popular but vast, with miles of twisting trails and places where the trees swallow the sky. We'd camped there before. We weren't worried. This trip changed everything. Months later, I still wake up sweating thinking about Jake. We rolled into Blackwood on a Friday afternoon in Matt's beat-up Jeep. The forest air was cool, even though the day was warm. We picked a campsite near a small creek, off the main trail, where someone had already built a fire ring. Jake was in rare form, cracking jokes, tossing a football, teasing Amber while she fought with the tent poles. He was always the loud one, the guy who could make you laugh even when you were furious. Matt, quieter, crouched over the fire pit, coaxing a flame to life. I hauled out the cooler. Soft drinks, hot dogs, the usual. Night dropped fast. By 9 p.m. it was pitch black, the kind of dark where your own hand disappears without a flashlight. We sat around the fire roasting marshmallows and telling stupid stories. Jake brought up some old Blackwood legend about people disappearing in the 80s, never found. Amber rolled her eyes and called it campfire crap. We laughed, but I noticed Jake kept glancing at the tree line like he half expected something to answer him. Around 11, he announced he was going for a walk. "Gonna take a leak and check out the creek," he said, grabbing his flashlight. "Don't wander too far," Amber warned. "I'm not a kid, Mom," he shot back, grinning. It was normal for him. The creek was only about 100 yards away. We could hear the water from camp. We didn't think twice. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Amber started checking the time every few seconds, agitation building. "He's probably just screwing with us," Matt said, but he didn't sound convinced. I grabbed my flashlight and called into the dark, "Jake, knock it off." My voice bounced around the trees and died. No answer. That's when my stomach turned. Blackwood is big, but not big enough for someone to just disappear that quickly. He couldn't have gone far. We split up. Amber stayed at camp in case he came back. Matt and I fanned out, keeping the creek as a reference point. I headed toward the water, scanning the underbrush. Every few steps I called his name. Nothing answered but my own echoes. The forest was unnaturally quiet. No crickets, no owls. Just my boots crunching dry needles. At the creek, my beam swept over rocks and roots and a flashlight lying in the dirt. Jake's. It was still on, its beam fixed on a clump of ferns. My heart dropped. Jake wasn't careless. He wouldn't just leave it. I picked it up, shouting his name louder now. No response. The light shook in my hand as I scanned the banks. In the mud, I found his footprints, boot treads heading toward the water. Then nothing. They just stopped like he'd been plucked off the ground mid-step. I screamed for Matt. He crashed through the brush toward me. When he saw the abandoned flashlight and the cut-off tracks, the color drained from his face. We searched for hours. Amber joined us, her voice raw from yelling. We followed the creek in both directions, combed the trails, circled back to camp over and over, hoping he'd be there, sheepish. By 2 a.m. we were exhausted and frantic. Amber sobbed that we should never have let him go alone. Matt kept mumbling that Jake was fine, just lost, that rangers would find him at first light. But the air felt heavy, suffocating. I couldn't shake the sense that the forest itself was watching us. At dawn, we called the cops. There was a ranger station not far away. Soon there were rangers, dogs, even a helicopter. We showed them the flashlight, the footprints that ended at the creek. They asked if he'd been acting odd, if he might have run off on purpose. "No," I insisted. "He was just Jake. Happy, dumb, adventurous Jake." They nodded, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. Blackwood has a reputation. People go missing here sometimes, hikers, campers, even locals. Most are found, some aren't. Days dragged by. The search grew massive. Volunteers, more dogs, drones scanning every clearing. We stayed at the campground, barely sleeping, joining any group that would take us. Amber was wrecked, cycling between guilt and numbness. Matt talked less and less, just staring into the trees like he could force them to give Jake back. The rangers turned up nothing. No clothes, no blood, no signs of a struggle. They checked caves, ravines, old logging roads. The dogs lost the scent at the creek, exactly where the footprints ended. One older ranger pulled me aside. "Sometimes people just disappear," he said quietly. "Blackwood's tricky, too many ways to get turned around." I wanted to hit him. Jake hadn't just gotten turned around. He'd vanished. Weeks bled into months. The search shrank, then stopped. The cops said the case would stay open, but their voices said otherwise. Amber moved away. Staying near Blackwood was too much. Matt and I barely talk now. When we do, Jake is a wall between us. I still drive out sometimes, park by the trailhead and walk to that same stretch of creek. I stand where his footprints stopped and stare at the water, waiting for something. A clue, a sign, anything. I've read about other disappearances in forests. Stories where people just cease to exist. Some blame animals, but there's almost always evidence after a cougar or bear attack. Others talk about hidden sinkholes, caves, abandoned wells, but the rangers checked all of that. Online, the theories get stranger. Lights in the trees, disembodied voices calling people away from camp. I don't buy it, not really. But alone at night, I wonder, what if Jake saw something and followed it? What if something called him? I dream about him. In the dreams, I'm back at the creek. He's standing there, smiling like nothing's wrong. But when I get close, his face goes blank, like he's not really Jake anymore. That's when I wake up gasping. I don't know what happened to him. I don't think I ever will. But I know one thing, I'm never camping in Blackwood again. The woods took my friend. I'm not giving them another chance to take me. It starts with a guy named Isaiah. He was a landscaper I'd met about a year before everything happened. I do landscaping too. That's how this story exists. Back then, I was working for a company that gave me nothing but grief. I won't name them in case they try something legal. All you need to know is I was the driver and foreman, and one day at the landfill, while I was dumping a work trailer, Isaiah walked up and struck up a conversation. Nothing weird. I told him I'd been landscaping a year and hoped to start my own business. He handed me and my crew a business card. I shoved it in my wallet and forgot about it. I already had a job. Fast forward to the day everything changed. I don't remember the exact year, but I remember the call. My job had laid me off. I dug out Isaiah's card and called. He remembered me and offered me work immediately. "I'll pick you up at 6 a.m., he said. I didn't have a car then, so I gave him my address. I was relieved to have work again, or so I thought. I got up at 4:30 a.m. My ex and his dad had to leave for their job at 5, so we all got up together. I'm not proud of this, but after they left, I used a substance I shouldn't have. I don't do that anymore. Right after, Isaiah called. I rushed to get dressed, jeans, work boots, hoodie, still tying my laces and adjusting my belt as I ran outside. He pulled up. We greeted each other and I asked if I could vape. He said yes. We hit the freeway. That's when it started getting strange. He asked if I'd had my morning sausage. I asked what he meant. He laughed and made a crude comment about relationships. I told him I wasn't comfortable with that. He just laughed again. He pulled over briefly to check the trailer. A bad feeling stirred in my gut, but I blamed it on anxiety and what I'd used earlier. When he got back in, the conversation took another turn. He asked if I'd ever considered becoming a dancer. I told him no. He kept pushing it, saying I'd be great at it. I reminded him I had a boyfriend and I wasn't interested in anything like that. He started resting his hand on my leg. I asked him to stop. He laughed and pulled it away, only for a minute. Then it slid back again. We stopped at a gas station. I went to the bathroom and stupidly used again. When I came out, he texted asking if I wanted a drink. I asked for a Red Bull. He brought one to the truck. I thanked him, but another gut-level warning hit me. I called my sister and told her I felt like something bad was going to happen. She laughed at first, but I insisted I was serious. I hung up when I saw him coming back. On the road again, he opened the glove box, pulled out a knife, and told me to be quiet. Then he grinned and said he was joking, that he just used it to cut fruit. I gave a weak laugh I didn't feel. We reached a gated community for our first jobs. At the security booth, he gave both addresses to the guard and my name. I was too scared to say anything. The first yard only took about 30 minutes, but it felt endless. He got close constantly, invading my space, making comments that made my skin crawl. The second house took about an hour. Same behavior, more comments about my appearance. I tried to act tougher than I felt and said something meant to scare him off. It didn't. I kept texting my sister, telling her everything. He noticed and asked who I was talking to. I lied and said I was making plans for later. That's when the fear really settled in. This man could hurt me and nobody would know where I was. I opened the Red Bull, thinking caffeine might keep me alert enough to react if I had to. At our fourth job, I needed a bathroom. He offered to drive me to one nearby. On the way, he called me a nickname I hated. I told him not to. He apologized. Inside the bathroom, I phoned my ex, telling him everything in a rush. I tried calling my sister again. No answer. Desperate to stay awake and sharp, I used the last of what I had on me. Not smart, but at the time it felt like my only edge. Back in the truck, he asked why I'd taken so long. I made up some excuse. By 11 a.m., he said we were done for the day. I thought that meant he'd finally take me home. It didn't. He got on his phone and spoke rapid Spanish. I couldn't understand a word, but the tone made me uneasy. He hung up and asked if I had plans. I lied and said yes. He laughed and said my boyfriend wouldn't be off work for another 3 hours, and then named the company my ex worked for. My heart dropped. We were in an area I didn't recognize. I started texting family members, trying to send some kind of signal, anything that might help if things went bad. He asked if I used drugs. I said no. He made another call, this time asking someone for something, and then kept laughing and staring at me. He asked my age. I told him 19. He followed up with more personal, sexual questions. I gave over-the-top, ridiculous answers, hoping to throw him off, make him see me as unpredictable or not worth the trouble. Finally, we got back toward town. I chugged the rest of the Red Bull and quietly planned to bolt the first chance I got. He started talking about his family, his wife, kids, normal stuff. I remember thinking, how can you say these things while acting like this? We stopped at a bank not far from my house. For a second, I considered jumping out and running, but instead I tried to appeal to whatever conscience he might have left. How would you feel if someone did this to your daughter or your wife? I asked. His response was to slam my head into the window. Stars exploded in my vision. I forced myself to stay calm, to stay conscious. He mentioned the cash he was about to withdraw being for our plans. Plans I had never agreed to. We passed my street. I saw my mom and grandma outside. I had to swallow a sob and stare straight ahead. We drove past a police station. A memory surfaced. You can text 911. I did it. I told them my name, age, and what was happening. They texted back, asking where I was and what vehicle we were in. I typed as much detail as I could, careful not to let him see. He asked if I was tired. That's when I realized he drugged the drink. The only reason I was still awake was because the other substance in my system was fighting it. He suggested we stop for another drink. I said yes, hoping it would give me a shot at escape. We pulled into a gas station. Before I could move, he leaned over and hissed a threat not to run. He watched me the whole time. We left and drove to another place. This time I asked if I could go in for food. He hesitated, then agreed. Inside, I grabbed random items and let some accidentally drop, making noise. I caught the eye of a clerk. Then I ducked into the bathroom and locked the door. There was another woman inside. I pulled out my phone and started talking loudly to my ex, describing what was happening so anyone nearby could hear. The woman knocked and asked if I needed help. I said yes. She went out and told Isaiah the restroom was closed. Not long after, there was another knock. Police. They told me it was safe to come out. I stepped into the open and collapsed into one of their arms, sobbing with relief. Outside, Isaiah's truck was boxed in by squad cars. He tried to come near me, but officers blocked him. I told them everything, start to finish. One officer said Isaiah was denying all of it. I told them to test the drink. The lab found sleeping pills in it. Still, the cops treated it mostly like a he said, she said. They drove me home and collected my clothes as evidence. They told me to stay inside and lock everything until they learned more. I called my mom and asked her to come right away. When my parents arrived, I finally broke down and cried in their car. We told the whole family I was safe. I stayed somewhere else for a while, then moved back in with my parents. Now it's 2025. I'm 22 and still landscaping, but strange things keep happening. Unknown numbers call and hang up after a few seconds of breathing. Photos of me have been left at the house. The police say it might be a prank. I'm not so sure. The fear hasn't completely left, but I survived. My name is Ella, and I'm a 17-year-old girl who works at a soccer stadium in my state. For personal reasons, I'm not sharing which one. The stadium has 3 main clubs for paying members, places where families get food, drinks, raffle tickets, meet mascots, and watch the game from good seats. The family club is downstairs on the ground level, where families can watch both men's and women's matches. The second club in Tier F is on the west side. The main club, where I work as a busser and soda runner, is called ZAG on the east side. Recently we hosted a big game, 2 major teams, lots of rivalry. That meant more people, more noise, and more tension than usual. On normal nights we have our regulars, people I can greet by name. But events like this bring in strangers I'll probably only see once. Everything went as normal until right before halftime. During halftime, club members come in from their outdoor seats to eat. I clear plates, refill silverware, check the buffet, take family photos, and run sodas from behind the bar. I was at the soda machine, trying to keep up with a line that wouldn't stop growing when an older man, maybe 60 or 70, stepped up. "Hi, what can I get you?" I said with my practiced smile. "Coke," he rasped. His voice was rough, like a lifetime smoker. I filled his cup and handed it to him, then started scooping ice for the next person. But he didn't move. "Straws are right over there," I said, nodding down the bar, assuming he was waiting on one. Still no movement. When I glanced up, I realized he was staring, not casually, but in that way that makes your skin crawl. Finally, after what felt like forever, he walked away. Not long after, he returned. "Hello again, need a refill?" I asked, trying to sound neutral. "How old are you?" he asked, same harsh voice. I laughed awkwardly, unsure how to answer. "I'm not allowed to say. Company policy." He smiled, showing yellow, chipped teeth. He looked down at my name tag and let out a low chuckle that rattled me. "Ella, huh? Pretty name for a pretty lady." It wasn't unusual for drunk fans to flirt with staff. We learned to brush it off. I forced a smile and a quick "thank you," and eventually he wandered off. I slipped into the back where the kitchen is and told my coworkers about the weird guy. They laughed and agreed he sounded creepy. The rest of the game, I didn't see him. After the final whistle, we cleaned up and pushed all the dirty dishes and linens down to the main kitchen on the ground floor. I was at the back of the group, pushing a cart, when I spotted him again. He was standing by the bathrooms, watching us. My gut clenched. The game had ended about 30 minutes earlier. Most fans had cleared out. What was he still doing here? And why this area? There are bathrooms by the exits. I forced myself to keep walking. I clocked out and headed around the outside of the stadium toward the main street where I park. There are always cops out there directing traffic, which usually makes me feel safer. I did feel safe, until I got about a block away, where the red and blue lights were just aglow in the distance instead of right beside me. I reached for my keys in my bag, turned around, and saw him again. He was walking under a street lamp coming my way. I knew it was him. I picked up my pace. So did he. My hands shook as I reached my car. I fumbled the keys. Before I could unlock the door, a cold hand clamped onto my shoulder. I spun around. It was the same man. He was too close. In his other hand, he held something I couldn't see clearly in the dim business alley. He didn't say a word, just grabbed my arm and tried to drag me away. I yanked against him, ripping out some of my own hair on purpose and letting it fall to the pavement. If I vanished, at least there'd be some trace of me here. I clawed his arm and fought, pulling back with everything I had. 2 men rounded the corner from the small business parking lot and froze. "Help me," I screamed. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt like the only chance I had. They rushed over. One grabbed my free arm and anchored me, while the other shoved the old man off me. I started crying and shakily dialed 911. Police came fast and took him into custody. I thanked the 2 strangers over and over, then drove home, still shaking. This was 2 weeks ago. I'm still terrified of walking to my car alone. The police ran his prints. He was already linked to 2 other potential kidnappings at different stadiums. I don't feel safe around strangers anymore. I park closer. I never walk alone without some kind of weapon on me. I am forever grateful those 2 men rounded that corner when they did. If they hadn't, I don't know what would have happened. Always trust your gut when it tells you something is wrong, because it might be. I belong to a small scout troop in Belgium. Every summer we pick one night to test our courage. We sneak into an old World War II fort people call Fort 17. The army abandoned it long ago. The front doors are bricked up and covered with heavy steel. Trees grow on the roof. To most people it looks forgotten. To us, it's perfect. We arrive after midnight. The road beside the fort is still active, so we park our van 2 sharp bends away. We switch off every light, even the tiny ones on our phones. Each scout covers any shiny part of their pack with dark cloth. We only whisper. When a car passes, we freeze like statues until its headlights vanish. The only way in is a crack high up in the outer wall. Years ago, older scouts drilled in metal bolts for climbing ropes. One by one, we clip harnesses in and start up. The stone is cold and damp. Halfway up, a truck roars by on the road. I press myself flat against the wall. Its beams sweep across the rock just below my boots. My heart slams in my chest, but the truck keeps going. I climb again and roll through the opening. The change is immediate. Inside, the air is always cool, around 14 degrees C, no matter the season. All road noise cuts off. Even my breathing feels muffled. A thin draft slides past my legs as if the whole fort is exhaling. The darkness is complete. I can't see my own hand. We have one strict rule: no flashlights. We move by touch and memory alone. The tunnels are just wide enough for my shoulders. If I stand straight, my head brushes the ceiling, so I walk hunched. Wet walls skim my sleeves. Footsteps slap stone and echo back, sounding like someone just behind me. When I stop, the echo takes one extra step. It feels like a second shadow always there. Tonight I'm the guide. I crawl in before the others. My job is to wait at a side tunnel so the new scouts don't wander the maze and get lost. They won't know I'm there. The surprise is part of the challenge. I count my paces, find my nook, and crouch back against the wall, gloved hands on cool concrete. Then I wait. Time stretches in total darkness. My ears start picking up tiny sounds. My pulse in my ears, fabric brushing my arms, the soft hiss of the tunnel's breath. After what feels like an hour, the faintest light flickers at the far end of the passage. It bobs gently, like a candle in someone's hand. I figure a clever scout smuggled in a birthday candle. We banned flashlights, not candles. I'm already imagining stepping out of the dark to scare him and confiscate it. As the light comes closer, I see it's smaller than a flame, pin-sized, cold white, not orange. I listen for footsteps. Nothing. 5 meters away, the little light blinks out, just gone like a switch flipped. The tunnel returns to perfect black. I lean forward, trying to catch any glow on the floor or walls. Nothing. I wait for the shuffle of boots. Still nothing. My smile dies. A soft sound, cloth brushing stone, whispers right in front of me. Warm, damp breath touches my face. I smell sweat and earth. A human smell. Someone is standing inches away. I hold my breath. Whoever it is holds theirs too. We both freeze, sharing the same small pocket of air. Seconds crawl by like full minutes. My lungs burn. My ears ring. I don't dare move. I don't know who or what I'm facing. At last, the warmth shifts. The presence drifts past my left shoulder. The air cools. Far down the passage, a faint red glow appears and vanishes. Silence returns. I count slowly to 40 and finally exhale. My legs are shaking. Part of me wants to run back to the rope and bail on the whole test. But younger scouts will be coming soon. I have to stay. Eventually, real footsteps approach from the left. Heavy army boots, that special hollow sound. Relief floods in. Only our scouts wear boots like that on these trips. A tall shape fills the passage. I reach out and rest my hand on his arm. "Keep going straight," I whisper. "Then first tunnel on the right, stay together." He nods. As he moves past me, I ask, still in a low voice, "Who climbed in first tonight?" He frowns in the dark. "Me, I'm the first one in." If he's first, who walked past me minutes ago? I let him go and listen until his steps fade. The tunnel wind feels colder. The rest of the night drags. 3 more scouts pass my station. I guide each one with a tap on the shoulder and a few quiet words. None mention a light. None mention anyone else. When the last one goes by, I wait 10 extra minutes, then force myself to stand. My knees crack. The fort's silence presses on my chest. I trace the wall with my fingertips, heading for the exit. Every footstep I take echoes back with that familiar, not quite mine, extra step. I walk faster. The echo does too. I repeat in my head that it's just the acoustics, just the weird shape of the tunnels. I keep saying it until I reach the rope. Climbing out is harder than going in. My arms shake, but I haul myself up. A gray strip of dawn hangs above the trees. Birds are already singing. The normal world rushes back. The others are by the van, laughing about bruises and cramped legs. They tease me about being pale. I just say I'm tired. We drive home with the windows open, letting warm morning air shove out the fort's chill. I never talk about the tiny white light or the breath on my face. But every summer, when the troop plans another night at Fort 17, I make one change. I don't wait alone inside anymore. Someone else can guide while I stay closer to the rope. The fort can keep its secret. I've already heard it breathing. That's enough. I rent a small blue house on the east side of Salt Lake City. It's perfect for me and my orange cat, Maple. The neighborhood feels safe, the rent is fair, and the mountains sit like a painted backdrop in the distance. Only one thing bothers me: the neighbor in the attached duplex. Most nights he blasts bass-heavy music until 2 or 3 in the morning. The walls hum, the windows rattle, dishes tinkle in the cupboards. I tried earplugs, white noise apps, then polite knocks. He never answered. After a month of lost sleep, I filed a noise complaint through the city website, clicked submit, and figured that was that. The next morning, my 6 a.m. alarm went off. I stepped outside and froze. All 4 tires on my Honda were flat, sliced clean across the sidewalls. The car sagged helplessly on the rims. New tires and labor wiped out my savings. I told the officer who came to take the report about the noise complaint. He shrugged. "We'll note it," he said, "but proof and motive are different things." That didn't help my nerves. That evening, I tried knocking on my neighbor's door again, one last attempt at a civil talk. The music cut off immediately, but no one answered. I stood there, hearing only my own heartbeat, until the music came back on, louder. A week crawled by. I watched the street every night, triple-checked the locks. One Tuesday evening, Maple didn't come in for dinner. I shook the food bag, called her name around the alley, circled the block with a flashlight. Nothing. I put up flyers, checked shelters. The house felt hollow without her weight on the couch. 7 days later, I opened my mailbox. Inside was a single envelope. No stamp, no return address. Just my name in shaky block letters. "Next time it's you." My hands shook so hard I almost dropped it. 2 officers came, bagged the letter, and walked the yard. No prints, no cameras nearby, no neighbors who'd seen anything. "Lock up and call if anything else happens," one said. I went on a buying spree. Motion lights, window alarms, 3 cheap security cameras. Night 1, a raccoon set off an alert. Night 2, nothing. Night 3, at 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Backyard motion. When I opened the app, the live feed was just black. No static, no shapes. Morning revealed the reason. The camera was gone, ripped clean off, the screws still in the siding. I started sleeping on the couch with a baseball bat within reach. Every creak made me sit up. At work, I jumped at sudden laughter. I left lights on in different rooms when I went out, so the house never looked empty. Fear doesn't wait for proof. 2 weeks later, a soft thump woke me before dawn, from the attic. I pulled down the ladder, flashlight shaking, and climbed up. Dust sparkled in the beam. Near a vent lay Maple's blue collar, clasp snapped. No fur, no blood, just the collar. My knees gave out. I knelt there on the boards, clutching it. The police came again. No prints, no sign of forced entry. The detective, kind but worn out, said, "We need a face on camera to move forward." I nodded like I understood. I didn't. Not really. I installed a sturdier camera over the front door and replaced the one in back. I bought plywood and bolted it over the tiny basement windows. My landlord complained about the eye.